He saved me when I was shattered, held me through every storm. And when I gave him everything, he made me the reason I fell. But then, I made sure he'd never stand again without remembering who brought him to his knees. He saved me when I was shattered, held me through every storm. And when I gave him everything, he made me the reason I fell. Funny how your entire world can be nothing but ashes, and then someone walks in drenched in light, and you believe, for the first time in forever, that maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to burn alone. That's what he was to me. My rescue. My anchor. My illusion. It all started the night I almost ended it all. I was standing on the edge of the old bridge on Hollow Creek. You know the kind, cold wind, darker thoughts. A silence so loud it screams. My world had caved in by then. My mother was gone. My so-called friends had vanished the second I broke. And love? I had stopped believing in it when my ex used my vulnerability as entertainment. I wasn't looking for a hand to hold. I just wanted the pain to end. But he found me there. Out of nowhere. As if fate had sent him. He didn't ask what I was doing. He didn't pity me. He just stood beside me in the cold, quietly, until I cried everything I had left. And then he said, "You don't have to be strong tonight. Let someone else carry it." And for the first time, I let someone in. I let him see the ugliest parts of me. And he didn't flinch. His name was Aiden. He had eyes like winter, cold if you stared too long, but strangely comforting when they softened. And when he smiled, it was like the world paused just to hear it. He called me his warrior. Said broken girls don't need fixing, they just need someone who doesn't mind holding the pieces. For months, he stayed. Picked me up every time I fell. Sat with me during my therapy sessions. Waited outside when I couldn't bear to let him in, but always stayed close enough to reach for when I could. He made me believe in love again. In slow mornings filled with coffee and silent touches. In soft laughs during midnight drives. In the way his hand never let go of mine in a crowd. Little did I know. The same hand that held me through my darkest nights would be the one to shove me back into the very hell he'd pulled me from. But back then, I couldn't see it. Back then, he was my lifeline. Back then, I would have died for him. And soon, I almost did. They say when someone saves you, you give them your heart out of gratitude. But I didn't give Aiden my heart because I was grateful. I gave it because I was in love. And I thought he loved me too. He never missed a chance to remind me how far I'd come. How proud he was. How strong I'd become. His voice became my inner monologue. His approval, my lifeblood. Slowly, I stopped looking at myself through my own eyes. I started seeing me the way he described me. You're a fighter, baby. You just needed someone to believe that. He made me believe I was whole. I started painting again. Singing again. Laughing in public. I wasn't scared of people anymore. Because he was always there, watching my back. When I got the art gallery internship I never dreamed I'd earn, he threw a surprise dinner for me. Just us. Just candlelight. Just the promise in his eyes as he took my hand and kissed it. I want to build forever with you, Ray. Forever. I said yes with every breath I had. Every scar that had finally started to heal. And the next day, he moved in. And that's when things changed. Not all at once. No. Aiden didn't destroy me like a wildfire. He did it like winter, quietly, slowly, without warning, and with a chill that settled deep in my bones. The compliments started to fade. Instead of "you're beautiful," I'd hear, "You should probably do something with your hair, it looks kind of messy." Instead of "I'm proud of you," it became, "You only got that gallery spot because they pity your trauma." At first, I thought he was just stressed. Maybe work was getting to him. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But then came the silences. The nights he came home and didn't speak. The way he looked through me like I didn't exist unless I did something wrong. And God forbid I questioned it. "Don't start acting crazy, Ray. You always do this, twisting things." I heard that word before. Crazy. My ex used it. My father used it. And now, Aiden. But I pushed those thoughts away because he had saved me, hadn't he? He was my anchor. My savior. So I tried harder. I cooked his favorite meals. Cleaned the apartment twice a day. Let him pick what I wore. Stopped going out with the few friends I had left because they didn't understand him. The deeper I fell into him, the more I lifted him, until there was nothing left of me but the pedestal I had built for him to stand on. And still, it wasn't enough. Because one night, I found what he had really been doing while I was busy worshiping him. And that night, I didn't break. Not yet. That night, something colder than fear took root in me. It was the beginning of something far more powerful. The birth of the woman who would make him bleed where no one could see, yet feel it every single day for the rest of his life. It was a Thursday. Rain tapped gently against the window, and Aiden had just left for his late-night meeting. He kissed my forehead like always. Said he'd bring home my favorite cake from Rose's bakery. But something in his voice didn't sit right. It wasn't the words. It was the way they were laced with absence, like he was already somewhere else. Still, I wanted to believe him. Until his laptop pinged. Aiden was meticulous. Always logged out of everything. Always wiped clean. But not that night. That night, he'd left his laptop open. And curiosity, a quiet, wounded kind, guided my hand toward it. It was innocent at first. Just a flicker of suspicion. But then, I saw her name. Lily. A name I'd heard before, an old friend from college, he said. But friends don't send messages like, "Last night was perfect. I still taste you." Does she suspect anything? My body froze. I reread the message 4 times. 5. 6. And still, my brain refused to catch up with my heart. I clicked. There were hundreds of messages. Photos. Voice notes. Videos. Dates. Laughs. Moans. He had built an entire parallel life with her. While I was healing, he was cheating. While I was begging him to love me again, he was loving her without guilt, without pause, without shame. I wanted to scream, to smash everything. But all I did was sit on the floor, shivering. He'd held me when I was broken. But now I realized he wasn't holding me to heal me. He was holding me still, so I couldn't escape while he took whatever he wanted. And I had given it all. My trust. My soul. My silence. When he walked in that night, with cake in his hands and a lie on his tongue, I looked at him and smiled. He didn't notice the storm in my eyes. He didn't notice that I hadn't cried. He didn't know that the woman who once stood on a bridge begging for peace had died, and something far more dangerous had risen in her place. Something cold. Something calculated. Something patient. He took my healing and turned it into a joke. Now, I would take his comfort, his dreams, his control, and turn them into the slowest kind of agony. He thought he was playing me, but I had learned enough from him to become the game he would never survive. From that night on, I started pretending. Pretending I was still his. Pretending I didn't know. Pretending I was the same girl he could manipulate, gaslight, and discard. He thought he still had control. And that was my greatest weapon. Because a man like Aiden, a man who feeds on weakness, who thrives on shadows and secrecy, never sees the storm when it's wearing a smile. I began small. Little things. Tiny changes. I moved his files. Switched his cologne. Forgot where I'd placed his keys, his wallet, his laptop charger. Always with a soft apology on my lips. Always with lowered eyes. "Sorry, baby. I've been so forgetful lately." He chalked it up to my emotional instability. Because that's what he always labeled my strength: unstable, irrational, fragile. But I wasn't fragile. I was sharpening myself in silence. I studied him. his routines, his passwords, his lies. I learned what made him tick, what gave him power, what he feared. Aiden had one weakness, and it wasn't me. It was his image. To the world, he was the perfect boyfriend. A gentle, charitable man who rescued the broken girl and helped her find herself again. He built his entire reputation around that mask. So I decided I would strip it away. Slowly, cruelly, ruthlessly. I started collecting everything. Screenshots, voice recordings, bank statements, photos of him and Lily, messages, dates, times, phone logs, evidence, proof. Enough to burn him alive in every circle he worshipped. I even recorded the way he spoke to me when the doors were closed. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the blame. He never suspected a thing. Why would he? He thought he'd broken me. But what he didn't realize was, he had taught me exactly how to break someone quietly. He had trained me in the art of emotional warfare. And now, I was perfecting it. Lily was next. I made a fake profile. Innocent. Sweet. Curious. Messaged her as a concerned woman who believed her boyfriend was being cheated on. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of gentle nudging, emotional breadcrumbs, and carefully planted clues. And then, she asked me the question I had been waiting for. Do you know a man named Aiden Black? Yes. I knew him. I knew the coward behind the charm. I knew the liar behind the love. I knew the monster beneath the savior's face. But I didn't say that. Instead, I replied with a single line. You should probably sit down. That night, I sent her everything. And then I waited. Not for her response, but for the sound of Aiden's world beginning to crack, exactly the way he had once cracked mine. It started with a silence. Aiden came home later than usual, his jaw tight, his mood dark. He didn't kiss my forehead. Didn't drop his keys in the dish like always. Didn't even look at me. He went straight to the bedroom and slammed the door shut. And I smiled, because I knew exactly what had happened. Lily had called him. She had screamed, cursed, sobbed. She had said my name. Asked him if I was the broken girl he had rescued. He had tried to lie, of course. But not even his silver tongue could fight against screenshots and recordings. He was unraveling. The next morning, he was quieter, distracted. I could feel his thoughts spinning like storm clouds behind his eyes. He watched me more closely now, like he was trying to figure out what I knew. But I gave him nothing. Only smiles. Warm meals. Soft touches. You seem off lately, I whispered. Is everything okay? He nodded. Just work stuff. Nothing to worry about. Liar. At work, his facade began to slip. Rumors spread. Whispers about him dating 2 women at once. About the gallery sponsor pulling out. About screenshots circulating through private groups of influential donors and partners. Lily didn't just cut him off, she exposed him. I had helped her see him clearly, and once she did, she torched his connections with a rage only betrayal can birth. But that wasn't enough. He had made me the reason I fell. Now I wanted him to fall because of me. So I planted the next seed. His business partner, Marcus. Aiden had always bragged about how irreplaceable he was. How Marcus needed him. But all it took was a quiet dinner, a few shared drinks, and a gentle reveal. I showed Marcus just enough of the real Aiden. Enough to make him doubt. And then I handed him the one thing men like Marcus value more than loyalty. Control. Aiden came home a week later, furious. His office had been reassigned. His account access revoked. He paced the apartment like a cornered wolf. But when I asked what was wrong, he snapped. Stop acting like you care. And that was the first time he said it. Said it with venom. Said it like he'd been waiting to throw it in my face. You were a project, Ray. A broken thing I tried to fix. But you just won't stay fixed. It stung. Not because it was true, but because I knew, in that moment, he was trying to break me again. But I didn't flinch. I simply looked at him and said, "You should get some rest. You look like you're falling apart." Because he was. And we were only halfway through. The next part of my revenge wouldn't just take away his image. It would take away his legacy. Because the gallery he used to elevate himself, it was about to showcase something far more damaging than art. It was about to unveil the man behind the mask, and the woman who made sure he'd never wear it again. The gallery was Aiden's crown jewel. It wasn't just a building filled with art. It was his empire, where he paraded himself like a visionary, a patron, a man who believed in second chances. That's what he told everyone when he spoke of me. He never said my name, of course. But I was the silent badge on his chest. The shattered soul he saved. He loved the story more than he ever loved me. So I gave him a better ending. A louder one. A masterpiece only pain could paint. The gallery's annual exhibit was coming up. His biggest event of the year. Sponsors, donors, critics, friends, enemies. He was already unstable, unraveling from the Lily fallout, from Marcus distancing himself, from whispers he couldn't quiet. And that's when I struck. Under a pseudonym, I submitted an installation to the gallery. Something raw. Something terrifyingly honest. I called it The Savior Who Fed on Scars. A collection of photographs, diary excerpts, voice recordings, and shadowed portraits of a girl who was rescued, only to be broken deeper. Of a man who held her hand while burying the knife. Aiden never knew the artist was me. He never suspected that the shadows in the portraits were his own. That the voice recordings came from our apartment. That the diary pages were mine, torn from the journal I hid from him for years. The night of the exhibit, I wore red. A dress he once said made me look like a warning. He didn't recognize that I had become exactly that. He saw the crowd gathering near the centerpiece. Whispers. Odd stares. Quiet gasps. He approached, smiling, until he saw her face, mine. Not fully visible, just enough. Until he heard his voice in the background of the recording loop. "You should be grateful I picked you up off the floor. No one else would have wanted something so ruined. You're just a story I tell to look noble." His smile faded. He turned to me, his eyes wide. "What did you do?" I leaned in. "I created art, Aiden. Isn't that what you taught me?" He wanted to scream. But the cameras were flashing. People were watching. His curated world was crumbling in real time. I walked away slowly, each step deliberate. Because that night wasn't about revenge alone. It was about taking back my voice, my story, my strength. He had taken everything I was and turned it into a weapon for his ego. So I turned everything he gave me into a mirror and made him stare. The critics praised the installation. They said it was haunting. A portrait of emotional abuse disguised as love. A reminder that even saviors can be monsters. Aiden left before the night ended. I didn't follow. Because by then I had one final piece left to play. One secret he never knew I carried. One truth that would destroy everything he had left. After the gallery night, Aiden spiraled. His public image shattered. The press picked up the story. Anonymous victims came forward. Lily gave an interview, careful, legal, but damning. And through it all, I stayed silent. Because I wasn't finished yet. I wanted him hollow. Not just exposed, not just broken. I wanted him haunted. There was one thing Aiden didn't know. One last thread in our story he never cared to ask about. Because to him, I was always just the damaged girl he saved. Not a woman with choices. Or secrets. But I had one. One I'd kept buried. I had been pregnant. Months before the affair. Before Lily. Before the unraveling. I found out late, when the sickness wouldn't leave. I had cried in the bathroom with the test clutched in my shaking hand. It was the only time I had ever believed we could be real. that maybe he'd soften, that maybe he'd love me if he knew. But that same night, he never came home. He said he was at a work thing. I found out later he was with her. I never told him. Because something inside me already knew. Aiden didn't build. He destroyed. And I refused to give him another life to shatter. But fate had other plans. I lost the baby 2 weeks later. Alone. In the same apartment where he once held me and called me his world. I bled in silence, cried into a towel, screamed into my pillow, while he sent texts that he was busy. He never noticed the bandages. Never asked about the dullness in my eyes. So I buried that truth deep inside me. Until now. Because if Aiden feared anything, it was being powerless. So I wrote him a letter. Printed the ultrasound. Wrote the date I lost our child. And underneath it, I left one sentence. You didn't just break me, Aiden. You broke a life that never got the chance to begin. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. He'd recognize the handwriting. I left it in his mailbox, tucked between ads and final notices. And that night, he called me. 8 missed calls. Then 12. Then 20. Then a voicemail, his voice raw, slurred. Ray, what is this? Why didn't you tell me? We could have. I didn't know. No, he didn't. Because he never cared to ask. And now, he never would hold that child. Never know what it would have been like to have something truly innocent look up at him and smile. He robbed me of my future. And I had just taken the last ghost of his. It wasn't about pain anymore. It was about silence. About making sure the next time he looked in the mirror, he'd see everything he had destroyed staring back at him. Because now, he couldn't rewrite the story. I had taken the pen. And I wasn't done yet. Aiden stopped showing up at the gallery. Then, he stopped answering calls. One by one, his connections vanished. The donors, the sponsors, the artists who once clung to his charm. His name had become poison. His legacy, a cautionary tale. The press called it a silent implosion. But I knew better. It wasn't silent. It was the sound of every lie he told caving in on him. Of every scar he left echoing through his perfect world. I saw him once more, by accident or fate, I'm not sure. He was sitting alone in the cafe where we first met. His hands trembling around a chipped coffee cup. No laptop. No crowd. No light in his eyes. Just him, and the silence he never thought he'd hear. He looked up. Our eyes met. He stood halfway, like he might speak. Might beg. But I simply smiled. You look like you're drowning, I said softly. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Because what could he say to the woman he once saved? The woman who now held the wreckage of his life in her quiet, steady gaze? I leaned in just close enough to let the final truth land. You taught me that broken things can be powerful, Aiden. And I made sure the last thing you'd ever break was yourself. And then I left. I didn't look back. Because the revenge wasn't in ruining his life. It was in him knowing exactly who did it. And why he deserved every second of it. He had saved me when I was shattered, yes. Held me through storms, yes. But he did it for power. For ego. He used my pain like a spotlight to shine on himself. And when I finally trusted him, he made me the reason I fell. But then, I made sure he'd never stand again without remembering exactly who brought him to his knees.